The Nerdgasm Talk podcast is brought to you by Spaces Philly. If you love podcasts, go to spacesphilly.com where you can check out Lulu and Pop, Both Sides, Turntables, Jump Thought Super Tongue, and the Nerd Coalition's very own No Gimmicks Needed. Visit spacesphilly.com today. And now, feel the Nerdgasm. Let's get into Judas and the Black Messiah spoiler talk.
We forgot one thing about in the TV section. I forgot to bring it up.
We did?
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't in the outline though. But
about to say, well, we just getting at the okay.
Yeah, my fault. But we're getting a Mr. Smith TV series.
Yeah, the only reason I didn't mention that because it's like nothing came up for it. Only thing I know
missed that.
is only Donald Glover is going to be in it.
Yeah, if I say that shit guy.
Yeah, I was trying to look for information. It just said it's going to be an Amazon
so it's going to be a black couple?
No, it's an interracial.
Oh.
And I was like, hey, Charles Gambino posting on this story for the first time in like ages. Like Mr. and Mrs. Smith coming, Amazon Studios. I was like, oh. I mean, Amazon. It's going to be on Amazon. But
it's going to be on Amazon.
Yeah, it wasn't really much information to go off. So I was like, I didn't feel like we should have like a 10-minute conversation on that. But, yeah. But thank you for that. On to the Judas and the Black Messiah. I'm going to run to the restroom. If you want to take it away, Mr. A&E.
Okay, sure. So, HBO Max and theaters just February 12th released Judas and the Black Messiah. And me and my wife checked it out. I did a spoiler-free review on which, I mean, if you truly know the story of Fred Hampton, it really ain't no spoilers, really. Mm-hmm. But for those who don't know and just watch a regular movie review and be educated, I have a non-spoiler review right now on the channel, so you guys can check that out as well. But this time I wanted to get more in depth and have more of an in-depth conversation about it. Hugh Flo, you said you have not yet seen this movie yet, have you?
Nope. But you usually do well spoiling without spoiling, so.
Well, I mean, this is a spoiler review, so if you're cool with that.
I mean, no, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. You're usually you're pretty good at spoiling it, but not really spoiling it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, like she was saying, these are historical events, so obviously
it's not like it's anything that you probably never heard before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So watch the movie. Phenomenal movie. I gave the movie a complete nerdgasm.
It was great.
A+. I enjoyed it. So far, because I know the year ain't out yet, but it's in my top for 2021 so far. And I hope that it does get the recognition that it deserves, especially with Dayton Kalu portraying Fred Hampton, and Lakeith Stanfield portraying the role of William O'Neill or Bill O'Neill, whatever, whichever way you want to go with it. Very complex story, and to the point where me and her watched it, it was like, yo, gotta sleep on this, a little bit. And I'm telling you right now, these freedom pieces, as I like to call them, or these movies about the struggle, they're going to upset you.
They're hard. They're hard to watch.
They are hard to watch because we are dealing with so much of this identical shit today. Mm-hmm. It's kind of hard, to shake that. It'd be different. You're watching a movie about black struggle, and you're like, man, I'm glad we're not like that no more. And I was like, no, we still here. You know what I'm saying? We still here. We just turned a different page. Maybe the page looks a little more cleaner, but it really isn't. So got him into that, and I was sitting there, looking like, okay, because me and my wife was having a conversation about Lakeith Stanfield playing, William O'Neill.
Right.
And I was sitting there saying, like, look, when you go in there, you're automatically, especially knowing the man, the myth, the revolutionary Q-Flow, is going to go in this movie, and the first thing you're going to do is hate William O'Neill. Mm-hmm. Because he said, no matter how you put it, no matter how you slice it, he set up Fred Hampton. Mm-hmm. And got him killed. That's all on him. But you look, what Shaka King did in this movie is he didn't make everybody flawless as well. There's so much that goes into these people to the point it's like I don't want to say you feel sorry for William O'Neill because you really shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also a part of you that's been like, man, the system fucked this man up.
I think the director did a decent job making everyone multifaceted.
That's the word I'm looking for.
Where he did not shy away from all the things that were going on, like within the party. The party had great things about it. Was established as a, like, protection and to uplift the race, but it became they started to become a problem for the government because they had like anti-police rhetoric, and then they also were becoming too powerful in the sense of how you can unite. If you unite folks, they can overthrow the problem. Like, what's the common denominator that is the problem for all of us? And they know if you get people together, that's how it's been since the beginning of the time. You keep people oppressed, you keep people downtrodden, you keep people disenfranchised, because if they all decide to say, you know what? Why are we all underneath somebody's thumb? And if we push up far enough or hard enough, ain't no thumb. So it's kind of just like, I think he did a good job in the time, especially in the time that was given, illustrating everybody.
Because this movie takes place in like what, a year or two?
It's about a year. I'm pretty sure it starts in 69.
When the movie first started, it started 68.
Started 68?
So 68, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, about a year and some change. And I will say this just about the movie overall. I think it was shot well. I think it was paced well. Because, especially with like historical pieces in any context, it can get boring. Where if you're trying to go so deep in and you're trying to have all these intimate, like, and intricate details, it can be like, all right, this is dragging. But I will say this. The thing that I was most concerned about with it being like, I'm gonna say Judas. The Keith Stansfield as William O'Neill being the focal point. I was concerned about that because I was just like, please don't make this a story about him and we lose Fred Hampton in the background kind of thing. But he was more as a plot driver, because those empty spaces where, like, it comes in when you're first introduced to him. We're in like a one of the Panthers education recruitment type meetings, and it's like, if you had if the movie was just that, because Fred Hampton, the thing about him was he was charismatic, he was a great speaker, he had the ability to like get people on his side, and if you just had that, yes, it could turn into one of those historical pieces where it gets preachy.
If Spike Lee doing it, yeah.
Or where you'll be like, it's lagging kind of thing. So I feel like in those pockets where it's like, we've established what's going on with the party right now. We've established what's going on with for some reason I'm gonna keep saying Huey Newton because we're talking about the Blame Hampton. Fred Hampton. Now we're gonna shift and show you all the stuff that's going on with Keith Stanfield.
Can I interject in that?
Yeah.
Okay. I 100% agree with everything you just said. A lot of period pieces do have those boring fill-ins, and some of them do feel preachy. Where in this movie, I felt so captivated with the performance from Daniel Kaluuya that I've never felt like he was losing me whatsoever. And those, I was worried about the same thing with Lakeith Stanfield being like, this being called Judas in the Black Messiah and not the Black Messiah and Judas. I thought this was going to put more of the forefront on Lakeith Stanfield's character rather than Fred Hampton. But I feel like we got more Fred Hampton than Lakeith Stanfield.
I honestly felt it was kind of even. I thought it was balanced out right. And I think they need to do that because I remember. I actually, after I seen the trailer last year when I reacted to it, I went and binged the whole Eyes on the Prize series. And I'm telling y'all, if y'all need to watch, if y'all have not seen a good documentary about every single aspect of the civil rights movement, you should go check out Eyes on the Prize. Unfortunately, Eyes on the Prize 1 is on DVD. Eyes on the Prize 2, you had to look up on YouTube.
Right.
So, but I sat there and I binge watched the whole thing, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember. I see the way on the interview, which it's amazing how much they had Lakeith Stanfield look like him in the beginning.
He really looked like
in the beginning, which you missed. He's doing the interview.
I saw a part, just a little piece of it. Him in the gray suit.
Yeah. Yeah. He's doing the interview as William O'Neill, and like I said, it's a tragic story for him. Also, because it's like, man, look how the FBI was just picking up these young black kids that was getting themselves in trouble, and it's kind of like forcing them against their will to do shit like this. But would you not agree with that?
I agree with the sentiment of that. In this case, it's just like he was a career petty criminal.
Yeah.
Yes. They forced him to do things he probably would not have done. He probably just been going on about his life. My issue with this is, at least in the movie, like because we don't know what the conversations are because William O'Neill's dead.
Yeah.
And the FBI agent, I don't know if he's still alive or not. I don't think he is. So we don't know what these conversations were. But if it went down like it was in the movie, it was like, you could just take accountability for your actions, or you could have this man murdered. And he chose to...
Well, no, well, now, in the movie, it wasn't that, hey, I put you to jail for stealing that car. He told him that he was going to out to the Panthers about being an informant.
Before we got to that part where he was just like, look, bro, I don't know if I still want to do this. And he was like, or you could just go to jail. Before we got to I'm going to tell them that you're an informant. Look what they did. Because remember, he didn't even realize at first that, Q, if you don't want to hear this part, you might want to cover
cool.
ears.
I'm sorry.
But,
no, go ahead.
It's cool.
Because that's what he was saying for me.
Okay.
No, yeah, go ahead.
So there's a part in the movie where they have a Panther who's on the run because another Panther was killed for being a rat, right? But they find out, like the FBI agent finds out, the guy who was killed was not a rat. He was like collateral damage. The person who killed him was an FBI informant. So it was just like, again, now when we get to that point, that's when I'm just like, now this is some bullshit. Because it's like, we got you in here, we want information. Right. And people are informants all the time, okay? So I understand that aspect of it. When you start you already manipulating these people, and then you start manipulating, you're moving the chess pieces. Then I feel what you're saying. It's just, to a certain extent, I'm never going to just be like, well, I'm not going to completely be like, it's all their fault. At any point, one, you'd have been in jail. He can out you all you want, but you're going to jail.
Look, first of all, it's like, but see, okay, it's 1968, and you're 19 years old. All right. He had the line in the movie. He said, "Why did you try to impersonate a federal agent?" And he said, "Because a badge is scarier than a gun." That's how we feel today. The badge is scarier than the gun.
I did like that line.
I did like that line too. It's just like, Jesse Plemons was trying to really understand where he was coming from, and he feels he's already bleeding profusely from the forehead, dripping on the floor. Does that man make it to jail?
Oh no, I'm not talking about that part. I'm talking about when he said, "I'm gonna out you to the Panthers if you look what they did to the rat."
Yeah.
Last time. He doesn't know that. He doesn't know that the rat is not the guy who died.
Exactly. So,
and that's when I'm just like, now this is when they've stacked the deck against you regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So now, and it's nothing you can do to get out of this. It's just, honestly, I will say, because I didn't give my, I guess, overall thoughts of the movie. I was afraid that it was going to take a left turn and it was going to end up being a whole thing about, like, Dan Kaluuya would be an afterthought. Because, like, me personally, I've always had this fascination with the Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
When I was young, we had like a Black History calendar in the house, and I found out that they were founded on my birthday in the year 1966, which is the year my dad was born.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, and for some, that piqued my interest. So I learned about the story of Fred Hampton, I want to say back in middle school, high school, and I delved more into it in college. So when I saw this movie coming out, like on the grand stage, because there are documentaries and things like that, but I was just like, now this is a chance for somebody to really tell this story, especially in a time when you're looking at something that can very closely mirror or parallel a case that was very big last year. Tell me that the case of Breonna Taylor and the case of Fred Hampton don't have similarities.
They do.
I mean, obviously, it was a rhetorical question. I'm not...
Oh yeah, no, yeah. I was just agreeing. Like, that was me agreeing.
It was just like, of course, she was not a political figurehead or anything like that, or somebody who was a threat to the power structure. But the idea that you could be sleeping in your bed and somebody could bust up in your house, shoot it up, and then change the narrative, where have we seen that before? So it's just like, I really hope they do this right. And I think they did. I think it was a delicate balance, because I was concerned about that, and I was also concerned when I saw it from jump, is the family involved in the movie? Because I hate watching biopics where they either don't take the family into consideration, or go to them, and when they say no, they just go ahead with it anyway, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then once I found out that Mama Akua and Fred Hampton Jr. were consulted for the film, I was just like, okay, I will go see it. I don't think that they would allow a film to be made where he's an afterthought. And I think that was right. They did a good job. The casting was great. I was also a little hesitant about Daniel Kaluuya, but I think he did a good job.
He was phenomenal.
From the footage that I've seen of Fred Hampton, the things that I've read about Fred, I think he did a phenomenal job. Dominique Fishback, I think, is the sleeper star in this movie.
She was really good.
Okay.
And I only said it because she does not have as much notoriety as a Lakeith Stanfield or a Daniel Kaluuya, right. But she gave a very subtle yet emotionally charged performance.
Right, yeah. Yeah, that's what I noticed too. It was very subtle but still powerful.
I'm gonna throw one at y'all, because I think it's probably a popular opinion. You called Dolly Fishback the underrated star, you said?
Mm-hmm. I just said the sleeper star.
The sleeper star?
Like, I don't think people expected as much from her.
I thought Jesse Plemons was that.
I also agree. He gave me that, like, I don't know what's with, like, these civil rights movies, and they pick someone with such a punchable face to be racist. Because Topher Grace really had it. And this guy, I was like, oh my God, there's just so many openings.
But there's a difference between Jesse Plemons and Will
J.
Pounder.
Edgar Hoover. Oh, you talking about?
I wasn't going to comment on Detroit yet, because I still haven't seen it. So it was like,
but what I'm saying from his character, off the back, the movie does good at pinpoint. This is who you should like. This is who you shouldn't like.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's parts in the movie and almost, I didn't say it completely, almost second guess that because.
Go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
Because in his mind, at the beginning of the movie, he feels as though I'm doing my job, I'm doing what's right because I worked on the civil rights case back in 1964 with Goodman, Sworn, and Cheney, and I'm doing this. And the Black Panthers have not shown anything different than what the Klan does.
Right.
In his mind, he feels as though that I feel as I'm doing the right thing. Then, as the movie goes on, it turns into a more sadistic, slimy motive, opposed to where he's at in the beginning of the movie.
Right.
I actually character, especially when Hoover came to him with that ultimatum. Well, not I can't say ultimatum, but when he straight up told him strongly implied, it basically said, "Look, how would you feel about, say your daughter dating a Negro, or bringing home a Negro?" Because that's what's going to happen if we keep this guy around. And you can, the way he was acting, the way it was acted. I'm not saying I don't know this FBI guy has in real life, but I'm saying, he looked truly torn because he's like, "What do I say?"
What do you say to this?
Right.
Because depending on what I can say, because it's like what goes on now. Your job is at stake. Everything you feel is going to come crumbling around you, and it feels like he's like, I know how crazy Hoover is, and I'm experiencing it now. I'm in this bond I can't break out of. What do I do?
Right.
I was gonna say I feel you on the we're establishing here is where we're establishing these are the good guys, these are the bad, or this is who you should be rooting for, this is who you should be rooting against. This movie slowly moves people into the gray area.
There you go.
That's what, and I remember Lee Sketch mentioned that a little bit earlier. Not everyone is flawless in this movie.
Because
and that's what I liked about it.
Fred Hampton has some points where he's hypocritical.
Right, exactly.
In the movie.
Yep.
Because he says a part in the movie where he's just like, I don't write my speeches. I'm just talking. In the speeches, he gets amped up. That's what happens. So in the speeches, he said, "Kill the pigs." Yeah. But then when like he said, brings the C4,
he like, well, kill the pigs, right?
Yeah,
Make them
kill the pigs. He's like, that's not what I was saying.
That's not what I meant.
He said, "Yo, when you talk, what you doing?"
Like you said that verbatim. You said kill.
The way that he looked at him, the way they both looked at him, like, are you crazy? When he said, "I got the C4."
And honestly, I watched. There's a great. If anybody wants to learn more about the Black Panthers, there's a great Panther documentary that came up from American Experience on PBS. And American Experience is known to do great documentaries such as Eyes on the Prize. So I watched that documentary, and they interviewed different Panthers from different chapters. Where it's just like they knew that there are certain Panthers in these organizations that are just stone fuck crazy.
Yeah, you have that in a lot of organizations like that.
Is that to the point where it's just like, yo, they're taking this and they're making it to something that we didn't envision.
We didn't intend
to see, because people are going to follow the lead. Like I said, now I'm not going to take any leadership qualities away from Fred Hampton at all. And like the whole Rainbow Coalition thing, it was something I just found out when I watched the movie. I didn't know anything about the Rainbow Coalition other than hearing Jesse Jackson say, and I don't care about Jesse Jackson.
That don't have nothing to do with it. Fred Hampton did it first.
Exactly. So, and then I'm just like, wait, this man just went up into the meetings.
He surely did. With
the Confederate flag waving in the back and said, yo, you stuck under the same. That's just basically somebody with a Black Lives Matter shirt going to one of these meetings, talk about something. Look, y'all don't understand what's going on.
We under the same thumb.
We understand the same thing, right? They go to the Hispanics and y'all bring our people together. Shit.
But that's why. But see, I don't even think here's the deal. The FBI, yes, they would be concerned if there were mass murders of cops happening in Chicago, like they was just taking out whole precinct types of thing or district. Then the FBI would care. The FBI did not care until it was just like, in
the documentary, they did care because the Black Panthers, as you already know, I'm talking this more for swag or something like that, would follow the cops.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
that's what they allude to in that scene in the movie.
Yeah.
Where he followed them into the deli.
Yeah.
That is what they were there for. They were there to police the police.
Right. I was like, shit, I ain't got the
so,
balls.
And I know, yes, they would care, but then they're like, we need to keep an eye on them. It becomes urgent, like I was saying before, after we watched the movie. Unless you go back and look at the dates, you don't really correlate the time. You got to think about this. Martin Luther King was assassinated April 4th, 1968. Fred Hampton comes out and does this speech in his presentation that has the Rainbow Coalition with all these disenfranchised groups and gangs and what have you in Chicago coming together on April 4th, 1969.
1 year later.
People are still mad. Y'all killed Dr. King. Mm-hmm. Whether you follow his methodology of nonviolence or you were more radical, y'all killed Dr. King, who was a notable leader in the community, and you've already killed. You're 4 years removed from the assassination of Malcolm X. Now, this is, of course, before everybody finds out that there was some iffy shit going on, but tensions are still high. Mm-hmm. And folks are still being beaten down. So what happens if in this time where people are still fighting for their rights and you decide that you need to get all these people together and they decided they're like, well, we're going to work together and uplift each other, and because we have a common enemy. Mm-hmm. So what happens? The common enemy is going to strike back because that's April. He gets locked up for some made up charges, and then in December is assassinated. So it was urgent. Mm-hmm. I don't know, like I don't know. I don't. Go ahead, say something.
No, I can't just say
so. Right.
You can piggyback or something.
I'm about to say you can't just drop the knowledge on these some say something. I'm like,
hey. Lady Sketch was carrying that review on.
Come on now.
Yeah, her back hurting. Well, you good?
I was just like, I'm getting like I'm trying to say what I need to say and still kind of censor myself too. So
look, I think since we've been doing this for years now on this podcast, and I've only had 2 rules. Okay. Mm-hmm. Other than that, I'd rather you say your thoughts.
Okay.
So there is no such to the point. It's like I said, because people feel as though if I sit there and say, well, Jesse Plemons was good because he felt as though that he felt that he was doing the right thing, people are automatically going to get mad there because of what his role was. But if you just take a big look back, that could be a controversial thing to say.
You got to remove yourself from it. But and that's the thing. Going back to him for a minute, that question to him is much what's happening now. A lot of things are rapidly changing, and that's why you see people so angry because they see themselves like just losing, like power is just slipping away. Mm-hmm. Things are changing too fast and changing in a way that they did not expect and do not want. But I really think that question right there was a self-reflective question for him because one, he could have either seen himself as somebody who either was not overtly racist. Mm-hmm. Because he went and worked on a civil rights case, or like I said earlier, I'm not racist, I got a black friend kind of deal, or indifferent.
Yeah.
But for somebody to pose that question to you, and you really got to sit back and think, like, what would I do if my child, who, if you look at it, because even with all the events that did happen, he said his daughter's an infant. It's 1969. Say she is a grown lady. She's 20, 21 years old. It's going to be the late 80s, early 90s. Mm-hmm. That at that point there was interracial dating. Was it still taboo? Sure, but it was definitely more acceptable than it would have been in 1969 in Chicago. So it's just like, so what do I do here? Like, here's a scenario I never considered.
Yeah,
because I saw a couple of those moments in the movie with him. That moment and the moment when he found out that the informant was actually the person who killed the this innocent Panther. Mm-hmm. he was just like, okay.
I'm in some shit.
Yeah, that was one of the moments where he was just like, this is not what I expected.
Because, look, at that time, he felt as though that this does happen. He felt as though in his mind that he was doing police work.
That this is all right. They were all just horrible people, and we need to eradicate
he had the notepad and everything to say, wait, hold. So they just get away with it?
So we just let him walk for murder?
And once again, I think those moments that he realized, oh shit, J. Edgar Hoover's a crazy son of a bitch.
And then it was just like, okay, so we let him walk for murder, and then we pin it on somebody else. Okay, and it's kind of just like the wheels are turning. Like, oh, this is not what I originally signed up for, kind of thing. And we could have very well. We don't know what the real the real people were thinking. He could have just been like, oh, it's whatever. But in the movie, it was kind of like that was when the veil came up, kind of deal. And I think it was after that moment that where we get how you were saying he slowly transitioned into more of the straight up and down. Like, listen, I don't care what happens, kill him, and you just be like, oh, okay, what? Okay, because it's just, I'll just say I really think they did a good job in the time that they had with some character development, which can be sorely lacking when you're doing things like historical biopics, because you just rest on the laurels of somebody portraying the person. They just pulling quotables from here and there and saying them, and they kind of look like them, and we're just like, well, this was good. But if you take the time to develop the character, it's better. It reaches the audience better, I think.
It does, because there's not one flawless person in this movie.
They made sure that everybody, had different levels to them, and there was different things happening with them. You could see their inner turmoil type of deal, except J. Edgar Hoover's racist ass.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah. The only thing I was like, oh my God, it's Martin Sheen.
Yeah, but, I didn't know that until after the movie. And he was like, that was Martin Sheen. And I was like, oh, shit. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. But even still, you got to also think, there was actually some points in the movie that I was like, I don't want to feel this way, but I was kind of getting mad at Fred. For a particular reason, I was like...
I was just waiting for you to finish for it.
She was just like, when she's pregnant, and she got to think about... Because we have kids. So your thought pattern has to change when kids are coming.
Things change very quickly. Life comes at you fast when you find out you're pregnant.
Brother said, "I'm for the people." So you mad? So are you mad if you had my baby? I was like, "Damn!" And I'm just like, God, that's kind of hard to digest for, because I can't be in her shoes when that happened. I'm not calling him a villain for that, but I'm just saying, but.
I mean, I don't think it was a villainous question to ask him. Ask her, does she regret it? That's a legitimate question.
No, I'm not saying I'm not saying he's a villain. It's a legitimate question, but I'm saying, but it wasn't like, do you regret having kids with me? It was more so do you regret having kids with me? Because you knew what this was about.
But I don't think that was. I think that was the nuance in that moment. That was I said I was for the people. Or I was going to die for the people. And then, when I adopted this, I had no idea that I was going to be a father. And then now I come home and I find out there's a little person who is half of me. So then what do I do? It was and I think all of that was captured and encompassed in that poem that she read to him.
Yeah.
Because they both were having an internal struggle where she's just like, I believe too, because that's why I was here. And I believe in you. But I also want to do what's best for this child. And he's just like, I devoted literally my life to this. This is not something he came up with, in his, I'm 21 now, let me be this was from childhood on. He's been like, I'm going to be this radical leader and he decided that he was just going to devote his life. When you figure out this is your niche, this is what you are meant to do. You found your purpose. You got to live in your purpose. And sometimes living in that purpose means that you could literally give your life for that. But then what do you do when something comes and completely throws all of that off track? Because think about it. In jail, he couldn't write to nobody. He couldn't get no letters from he could barely write to people. He couldn't get any letters from people. So only thing that he knew was the cops came and said, we bombed your shit. And that was it. So he comes home to a completely different world, expecting they're going to have to rebuild the Panthers headquarters and expecting to see just the homies. In the meantime, Jimmy done got shot and died like that night. And then several of the key other Panthers in the movie that were here when he left are gone. They in jail now. Other people have been shot. His girlfriend's pregnant. So it's just like, I can understand, especially at that age. Because I had a baby at 20.
She was 18, what?
I'm just saying, he was 21 when he died. He turned 21 a few weeks before he was murdered. So he was 20 at the time when they found out that she was pregnant, and she was, I think, 18. So it's just like, I've been in that spot when you're 20 years old and life is literally coming at you fast and you don't know what the fuck to do with yourself. And now, not only that, you coming into age, you're coming into adulthood, and then now you have this whole movement on your shoulders. Then what? You know, it's just, it's hard to like really see that's another thing you push into the gray area. Like, do I be like, why would you say something like that? Or, you know, like, I understand why y'all are scared. Kind of deal.
Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, so how do you feel about the scene?
I felt indifferent. Like, I get more where you're coming from when he said that when he said, "Do you regret having my baby?" I was like, that was kind of harsh, but I understand the role he was in.
See, it's like if you,
it was like I know what he's trying to convey here. It's like, look, either way, I'm down for my people, like it or not.
Let me ask y'all this question then. If he was 34 years old, would he say the same thing?
Probably not.
Yeah, I don't
think so.
Because I'm like that's kind of like the answer is a young brass decision.
Mm-hmm.
Is it's just like, man, and it's like, Dolly Fisher did a great job reacting to it. I mean, she read the poem and like that. It's just like,
because she could have just been like, because really there's no right answer to that. If you say yes, excuse me, if you say yes, then it's just like, so where do we go from here? If you say no, then you still left out on a lurch, like, I don't know what to do or how to feel.
Right.
There was no right answer to that question.
No, it was. It's not supposed to say be an answer to that question, but it does show the complexity of, who this guy was.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it shows that like everybody's not going to necessarily agree with that decision.
Mm-hmm.
Or just to be just so open about it, but at 21 years old, everybody on this podcast has been 21 years old.
Mm-hmm.
There was no way in hell I'm dedicating my life to the people at 21 years old. I'm telling you how I felt.
Hell no.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing it for the people. That's a different mindset. Different discipline that was obviously around back then. But it's just like at 21, I was just happy. All my friends was like, I'm in drinking age. I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm at grown age.
But see, and that's I think that's the big difference, because we always joke, like when we watch like blaxploitation movies and stuff like that, be like, y'all was a hard 25.
Yeah.
Are you sure you was only? But you got to think about the time that these people were living in. You was either going to devote your life to the cause, like he did, and say, I'm going to lay down my life and die for these people, or you was going to go to war. You was going to go and do some job that could very well cost you your life anyway. This was a completely different era. They was drafting people into the service to go and fight people who they don't personally have no beef with, but now I got to kill you because the U.S. said I got to kill you. So you got a whole lot of shit on your shoulders, regardless. It's like the weight of the world is heavy, anyway. So what do? Do you go out here and say, well, I went down swinging for my people, or do you end up dead because you in a city that's racked with violence, whether that be by somebody else who is just as fucked up as you, or and I mean in the sense of we all disenfranchised, if you want to call it that. You know, we all disadvantaged. Or you get shot by the cops, or you end up getting mixed up in some shit and you in jail, or you get drafted to go off to war. Like, what do you do? Which way is your life really going at this point in the late 60s in Chicago? So I don't know. I was really invested in this story being told right, and I'm glad that it was done well.
And you know, it didn't. I said it did anger me. It did, but you know, it was very informative because I'm not a Black Panther guy. I'm not talking about the Marvel people.
Obviously,
me and my wife used to have like subtle arguments at the beginning of our relationship. I'm a civil rights guy. I'm John Lewis. You know what I'm saying? I'm Martin Luther King. I'm Rosa Parks. I'm not, late Malcolm X type of thing like that. You know, I'm not Nation of Islam. I'm not, that wasn't the movement I necessarily studied. Then, when it came to the Panthers, a lot of them, I was just like, well, shit, this is radical shit. And then to some point, even like we didn't say documentary, some things helped out the community, which they were supposed to do. A lot of things got them nowhere. And I'm like, man, that's a tough movie to get with. And when you make movies about the Panthers, those are always tough sells to anybody. And unless you are really invested into the story. And for somebody who was not invested into the Panthers like my wife is, I'm here to tell you right now, it's a great story that will help you educate the complexity of this party and, what this party really stood for, what it's all about. So that's just come from somebody who wasn't, reading about the Bobby Seals and the Huey News and the Fred Hamptons of the world.
I mean, well, yeah, and because you got to understand, we did come up in completely on polar opposite ends. He always studied like Martin Luther King and SCLC and SNCC and all of that, and I came up in a house where we did openly talk about the Panthers and the things that the offshoots of that, Huey Newton and Bobby Seale and the Nation of Islam, just like the beliefs and like just things like that. No, it's not like that's the only thing I ever studied. Even if it was, so what? But I grew up getting different things from different areas. So it was just like I've seen things like this. Also grew up in a time when like the MOVE bombing happened, that was only a few years removed from like when we were born. This shit was still fresh. Things like that, learning about things like MOVE, having met some of the survivors of the bombing, like you grow up in a different mindset and you're just like, I want these stories to be told because people don't know. There's still people just now finding out about the MOVE bombing. It happened in 1985. Like people just like a real bomb. So it's just like one day I'm sure that because there's also a documentary about that on HBO right now.
The MOVE bombing.
It's about the MOVE 9.
Okay.
There are other documentaries about it, like that are more. Some of them are more involved around Mamiya, some about the actual organization. But eventually, something like that may get a movie, and it would be like, you see how good Judas and the Black Messiah did. You see, and even on a less extreme end of that, you see how things like Hidden Figures did, where nobody in them, now that's something I had no idea about. I had no idea that any Black woman, one, even worked at NASA at the time, or had anything to do with the space race.
Yeah.
No idea. So things like this doing well are a launching pad for other stories to be told, and not even just our stories, just stories of little known facts that we don't get because history is written by people on the other side of it. Just like there's a quote when I was, going and doing like some searching from Fred Hampton Jr. that was just like, we want to tell our stories because a lot of the information that is still publicly available about the Panthers comes from the FBI. It ain't coming from former Panthers. It ain't coming from people who grew up in that time. This is coming from people who openly admitted that there was an entire organization dedicated to spying on Black leaders and trying to bring them down from the inside out. So we want to do the service of telling what happened from the viewpoint of people who experienced it. Instead of, this is not all quote, by the way, I'm paraphrasing. Instead of you having to go and look it up, and then you look at the bottom at the source, and you like Federal Bureau of Investigation. Like, wait, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's why I gotta check out Child of Chicago 7 too.
I also want to see that. I want to see. I heard that was really good.
Well, Swag, two quick things. Did you anything you didn't like about it, and what's your grade for it?
The only gripe I have about it is that a lot of the scenes were too dark to see what exactly was going on. If they turned the contrast up a little bit, I would have been satisfied. But it was hard to see a lot of the stuff that was going on in the dark. Other than that, I really enjoyed this movie. Like, highly.
As somebody who's blind for real, I can agree.
Like, it was like, okay, like the whole the climax. I didn't see a thing that was happening because everything was super dark. But yeah, that was my only gripe about it. Other than that, I really enjoyed this movie. This is a damn near perfect for me.
I gave it a complete nerdgasm.
Is your review already up?
It will be tomorrow.
By the time the podcast go up, right?
Okay. Yeah. Okay, gotcha. So make sure you guys check that out. At least get your score.
I guess I give it a Nerdgasm too. That's like an A+.
Yeah, that's 5 out of 5 for me.
Okay, yeah. I'd give it a 5 out of 5. I will say, me personally, sometimes I have to watch things and sit with them, and then I can give you like my final. But even if I sat with it and watched it again, I probably wouldn't give it anything below an A.
Right. Yeah. I hope this is mentioned in the Oscars. I really hope it is.
I think that he was nominated already.
Oh, nice.
The only thing that we were confused about was the Image Awards. And I was saying when we did the podcast last week, I think it might be like a cutoff thing. But I'm pretty sure he got nominated at least for like a Golden Globe.
Yeah.
Yeah, he at least was nominated for Golden Globe for this. I have a question, Swag. As somebody who I don't know the depth of your knowledge into like the Panthers or Fred Hampton, as somebody like just a casual moviegoer, what did you think of it? Did you come out of it like feeling like you learned?
Yeah, no, I came out of it wanting to know more information. Like I started like going online to get some more information about about Fred Hampton.
Okay, I mean, I was just
like it piqued my curiosity to learn more, and I feel like a movie of that stature should be able to do that.
That was the question I wanted. Like, so would you go and actually find out? Because some people be like, well, why movies shouldn't you shouldn't be getting your information from movies. The whole point of it usually is, okay, this is cool, so maybe I should go and do some more research into what happened so I can educate myself, kind of thing.
Right.
I was just genuinely curious.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what it did. It piqued my curiosity, and I want to know more about this because I know there was a lot of things that they didn't mention. So
yeah,
I definitely wanted to go in to learn, like, oh, what have happened to this era that they didn't mention. So it definitely piqued my curiosity. It interests me in learning more, like these movies are supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.